Dad was in the Navy, World War II. I had an uncle in Normandy and another uncle that was captured by the Germans in a German prisoner of war camp. Everybody in my family from that generation went on active duty, went to the service. And it was just, since I was a small child, that I was expected to do the same thing. So I took off to sea. I was fixed wing qualified before I went in the Army. I knew the first thing they're going to do is send me to helicopter school. Second thing they did was send me to Vietnam. I was lucky to get a Cobra because they'd fly 240 miles an hour, and that was the fastest helicopter in the Army at that time. The bad part about it was you were scramble status 24 hours of every day, and you got to sleep about 20 or 30 minutes at a time.
June 18th, 1968. It was pitch black, no moon, no stars, no light beyond the glow of Lieutenant Taylor's cockpit controls when he heard a whisper coming through his radio. We're surrounded. We're surrounded. That's what he heard. The call had come from a 4-man Army patrol unit just northeast of Saigon, a unit that included Sergeant David Hill. Earlier that day, the men had set out to recon the area, but in the dark, the men found themselves in the middle of the Viet Cong stronghold.
You and your wingman would carry 76 rockets and 16,000 rounds of ammunition, and it doesn't take long to shoot that up.
So despite the fact that he had no rockets or rounds left, Lieutenant Taylor drew the enemy fire himself, using his landing light to trick the enemy into thinking he still had ammo. He started making runs on the Viet Cong fighters. The ruse worked a few times, but it was enough for the men to make it to the extraction point.
So I just landed. 2 of them sat on the skids, and 2 of them straddled the rocket pods and pulled them out of there.
Within seconds, Lieutenant Taylor was back in the air, but the mission wasn't over. Lieutenant Taylor saw his fuel light flickering. He had started off with 1,600 pounds of gas, and now he had about 6, not enough to make it back to base. Worse, the soldiers he was carrying were covered in wet mud and clinging to the Cobra against 50-knot wind.
So I flew them over to another secure area where the infantry secured field. They got out, and I landed, they got off, and they all walked to the front of the ship. That's awesome.
He wouldn't see some of these men again until 30 years later at Army reunions. By that time, Lieutenant Taylor had long become Captain Taylor. He had flown more than 2,000 combat missions, and he received a Silver Star, a Bronze Star, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, and 43 Air Medals. Families showed up at these reunions too. They'd look for Larry, they'd hug him, they'd say, "You don't know me, but you saved my daddy's life."
So we never, ever left any money behind. Because if the shoe was on the other foot and you were on the ground, you wouldn't want them to leave you behind.
By how he refused to give up, refused to leave a fellow American behind, refused to put his own life above the lives of others in need. When duty called, Larry did everything to answer. And because of that, he rewrote the fate of 4 families for generations to come. That's valor. That's valor. That's our nation at its very best.
Doing my job, that's an overworked cliche too, but I was doing my job. And if you don't pull them out, they're going to get killed.
First Lieutenant Taylor's conspicuous gallantry, his profound concern for his fellow soldiers, and his intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army.